Welcome back. This is Janet with Paper and Spark, and this is part 2 of the video tutorial series on how to use your Square Seller Spreadsheet. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use your expense category tabs down here and how the amounts entered here will flow to your monthly summary tab. So you've got a few different categories of expenses down here, and then you also have some custom expense rows that you can change the name of directly on your monthly summary tab. All the categories are pretty self-explanatory. You can organize your expenses however makes sense to you. I wouldn't worry too much about whether you need to be putting something in, office expense versus postage versus advertising versus other. It's your spreadsheet. It's flexible. You can customize it how you want. The main thing to remember is that you need to enter with the month/date format, and you've got to use these forward slashes here for the spreadsheet to work correctly. So let's say I'm going to enter a few different expenses here. I had professional headshots done. Okay, so let's enter some expenses here. Like I'm going through my books at the end of the month, I'm looking at my bank account statement, and I see that I paid $100 to my web designer, Krista Evans, for some web design. And that came from my bank account. So I might put that here, and if I have another, like an invoice number or a receipt number or something like that, I might enter it there. So now you see I've got 2 expenses for April on my professional services tab. The sum of those is going to enter itself right here on the April column under professional services. So that is what you would do for all your business expenses that month. You'd enter them on the applicable tab. If you don't have a tab home for an expense that you're looking at, you have a few options. You can either put it on the other tab here, or if it's something that you know you'll probably have more of in the future, you can actually rename one of these custom expense rows to whatever you need it to be. So like if I'm selling at a lot of craft shows, I might have put craft show fees as its own row, and then I can just enter that fee directly here, right? So it's pretty flexible and you have a lot of different options. Something else helpful to note about these expense tabs, especially after you have a lot of data entered in them, is that you can use your spreadsheet software's filter and sort functions to view your expenses in an easier way, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So let's say you're catching up for like an entire quarter, or hopefully not, but an entire year's worth of expenses, and you're just entering things here willy-nilly, and you're not going in like date format, and you've got, all sorts of stuff, and it's just a mess. And I'm just typing in random things now. Okay, so all you have to do is select this little drop down box right here next to your date column, because you want to sort by date, and then click ascending, and now they're going to be in chronological order by date. You could also say, I want to see all my charges to UPS this year. So I'm going to select my vendor drop down, and I'm going to filter, because sort is going to put things in all the data in a certain order, and filter is going to show us only certain things that we tell it we want to see and hide all the other stuff. So I unclick select all, and I say, okay, just show me my expenses to UPS. So now I just see my UPS transactions. So filtering and sorting are 2 really useful things that you can do with your data just by using these little drop-down menus, these little arrow boxes on whatever column you want to filter or sort by. Now I want to encourage you to read over your PDF instructions that came with this spreadsheet. It's got a lot of useful info in there like tidbits and tips on how to categorize your expenses, what tab to enter them on. I've got some useful info in there about inventory and whether you want to enter inventoriable stuff on this materials and supplies tab, or how you may need to be tracking inventory separately. So make sure you read that. I also have some ideas about what you might want to do with owners' contributions and withdrawals, because those don't go on the spreadsheet anywhere since they're not really expenses or revenue for tax purposes at least. And I also have a lot of helpful sales tax info. So speaking of sales tax, let's talk about these two blue rows down here: your in-state sales total and your sales tax collected. Okay, so the sales tax collected row is basically just summing up what you have collected via Square for sales tax. So whatever you've input into your Square app to charge your customers every time you swipe or input a payment, this is what you've collected for the month for that. This isn't necessarily what you're going to end up paying your state, because number one, we're depending on you having done it right, using the correct rate and everything like that, and we're depending on you to actually charge your customers every time correctly. And then also, this is only for Square sales, so you might end up owing more if you sell elsewhere or other than just with Square. But basically, that row is summing up this column right here. Column H, your tax column from your Square import. Your in-state sales total is something that I've added automatically here for you, because on a lot of sales tax forms, the state will ask you to input your total in-state sales for that time period. So this is just me letting you know that number in case you need it. Now, I hesitate to truly call this your in-state sales, because if you take a look at your Square import, nowhere on here does it actually list the state of your customer, and we don't know. You know, if you're doing a lot of in-state shows and that's how you're using Square, then you can assume that, you know, all of these are in-state customers, obviously. But if you're using Square Online, things get a little more tricky. So to calculate your in-state sales, I've basically set up a formula saying, hey, Excel, or hey, spreadsheet, if the row has got an amount greater than 0 or any amount other than 0 in this tax row, then treat this gross sales minus the discount as if it's an in-state sale. So the in-state sales row here is basically just the sum of anything here minus the sum of anything here, assuming there's tax in the row to begin with. Now, if that sounds like Greek to you, it's totally fine. My main point is just take this number with a grain of salt. You might have in-state sales that you charged $0 of tax on for whatever reason. So if you know that you've done that, then you should know that those 0 tax sales, even though they were in-state, are not included here. Because once again, Square does not actually tell you the state of your customer. So if you went out of state and used Square, then we don't know that, because it doesn't show up on these reports. I hope that makes sense. Again, I've got some more helpful info about how sales taxes work in general, like a big picture overview, over on the PDF instructions. All right, so that runs through how to enter your expenses into the Square Seller Spreadsheet and how to interpret this sales tax data down here. So what you're going to do going forward is every month you're going to import in those Square CSV files to automatically generate your sales and your fees. You're going to set aside some time to consistently enter your business expenses into the applicable place on the spreadsheet. And then the spreadsheet's going to automatically calculate your net profit or loss for you, so you can see how your shop's doing this month, and you can keep up with how much you're spending each month, how much you're making each month, and how much you're really netting over the entire year. So you can use this data for a lot of helpful stuff. You can compare your sales and your expenses throughout the year on a month-to-month basis. You can make budgets. You can set revenue goals for next month. You can know when you have enough money set aside to invest in something. You know how much you need to be saving for sales tax in your bank account before the next payment's due. And you can really use all this information at tax time at year end to do your tax return for federal income taxes. Having everything updated already is going to make things a lot easier for you. So I highly recommend trying to stay on top of this from month to month. I have an FAQ resource page that answers a lot of questions that might pop up as you go on my website, paperandspark.com. And you're also welcome to email me at hello@paperandspark.com with any questions that you have as you go. Thanks for purchasing the spreadsheet, and I hope it makes your financial life a little bit easier and less painful.